the plugs. So there you go.
That sound, can you hear? Can you hear?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just got to turn the volume down because you're very bloody loud.
I've always been loud. You too.
I've been running around, so I'm sitting here dripping. It's like, what the hell's going on with me?
It's summer.
Oh my God. Los Angeles kills me.
Oh, Griffin, and I love how you talk. So if I ask you any kind of a question and how you go into other things, you have full permission to do that.
All right,
You
dear.
don't have to just answer a question and stop. If you have something you want to say, I have never said that to anybody else on the show, but I love how you do that.
All
So
right.
just feel free to just, and I was thinking,
You
because
got it. Now, this is going to air in October, right?
yes, it is. We're down the way, and it'll be on Dash Radio. Play 5 times exclusively at dashradio.com, and then it will move to like Anchor, Spotify, Apple, all the regular places that people can just listen on demand. And I'll share all those links with you and stuff too.
Okay, cool.
And then it'll also go on YouTube once it hits that.
Okay, cool. So the themes that we should talk about really should be more seasonal to October rather than now.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, if we get seasonal, we can do that. My whole
Right.
show is really kind of about empowering because people just give away their power. So, and I know, again, you being which I'll talk about, my greatest, longest teacher, are such a good proponent of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. I think we're all set to go. And then also, Griffin, we're going to use this for time checks down here. So you'll see that. Don't necessarily need to refer to it because Patti will do a great job of closing that segment. So we're going to go ahead and camera off. Sounds like Kevin, give me a thumbs up. Griffin sounds great.
Yep.
It sounds great.
Amazing.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Thank you.
Here we go. Have a great show. Here we go in 3.
Thank you.
We're recording. Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Witching Hour. I am Patti Negri, psychic, medium, and good witch, and I am your host for this hour journey into the other worlds. You might recognize me from my regular appearances on Ghost Adventures on travel channels, from my book, Old World Magic for the Modern World, or some of my appearances, but this is my baby. This is the Witching Hour. What is the Witching Hour, you may say? Well, actually, it's the time way late at night, usually about 3 a.m., when the veil between the worlds is the thinnest. But right now, the Witching Hour is right now, whenever you are listening to the podcast. And what this Witching Hour is about is to shine a light and remind you how amazing you are, how powerful we human beings can be when we just don't give away our power to other people, to limiting belief systems, to fear, to just about anything else we can think of. So every week, I'm going to bring you my lifetime of spiritual experiences, education, and the paranormal and other worlds directly to you. I'm going to bring you amazing guests, the best in their field from all over the world. And I must say, today is no exception. Today, not only is he honestly one of the best in the world, I am honored to say he is one of my dear friends, and I'm equally honored to say that over the past 10 years, he has been my longest, best, and most favorite teacher in the occult arts and witchcraft. So I'm going to read about him right now because I just love this whole bio. So I would like to introduce you. Yes, he's giggly, isn't he? You are going to love him, I have to tell you. Let me introduce you to Griffin Ced. He is the virtue holder and witch father of the Ced tradition and family line. He has led the line and tradition in the USA for the past 20 years. Hailing from Britain, you'll figure that out quick enough. He comes from a mix of Hertfordshire village folk, Romany gypsy, Essex, and London breeding. The witch blood was passed to him across the veil from his great-grandmother, who, having decided it was time to move on, drowned herself in a bucket the year before his birth. He was raised with spiritualism and good old-fashioned British craft, to which he was initiated in Essex back in 1975. Escaping the soggy isles for the snowy climes of Norway, a quick tour of Africa, and many other strange lands, he finally fell in love with California, making LA his home for the past 24 years. Griffin has been teaching and leading public rituals for the past two decades and committed to community building today at the Green Man store in North Hollywood. Griffin is the manager of the Green Man, helping to create magical experiences for people who have come to love the store. At the Green Man, in addition to pagan pagan products, Griffin and his associates offer public rituals and many diverse craft-related classes on a weekly basis. And I must say, now, which is great for all of you listening, where they used to be local classes, now they're online. So you don't have to be in Los Angeles or North Hollywood. And believe me, he is one of the most magical and amazing teachers ever. So with no further ado, welcome Griffin.
Hey, hello, Patti. Good to see you.
So good to see you.
Where did you get that? Where did you get that bio from? That's like 10 years ago, darling.
Well, what you find it online? You didn't send me a new one. But okay, so 34 years he's been in LA. He's been leading the clan for just add a few years on too.
Oh God, don't, please don't.
Oh, I know. Well, we're both about the same. So we're both 39 last year, right? I think we're the same. Yeah, we're like, crossing our fingers. Anyway, I really do want to say, as a leader, as a ritual leader and a teacher, you have been my most honored and cherished. I'm sad I don't have as much time now, because there used to be not a week would go by I would not be sitting in class learning amazing things.
I have missed you. I've missed you.
I have missed you too, but I'll get back when I can. And I was so excited that you were willing to come on the show, because that means I have you an hour to myself. So anyway, as we just said, you were born into this. Did you always follow the path? I know it's in the blood, because we talk about the blood all the time. So did you ever have any time away from it? Like, rebellion, like I'm just going to be a regular person, or?
Yeah, I did actually. When I left home and I started traveling around the world, and also when I went to Norway, I got involved in theatrical arts, and during that period, I was still kind of kept my fingers on the periphery, but I didn't really practice it for about 10 years while I was working in Norway and traveling and stuff. So then when I came back to it, was actually when I came to California, that's when I actually kind of got back into it, solidly. But in my youth, all through my teens, right into my early 20s, I was practitioner. And then I had about 10 years down, and then came back into it sort of strong and really committed to it.
Yeah, and you really truly are a community leader, whether we're at Pagan Pride something and the rituals you bring and bringing together the pagan community. I talk about it a lot, the differences, the slight difference in the differences, but how we are, everybody really working on coming together as one people, because our planet really needs that right now.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I look at the pagan community as probably one of the most diverse communities on the planet, because we don't unify in culture, we don't unify in creed, we don't even unify in our religious beliefs. We have a principle of working with spirit, and we have certain commonalities that we use in a ritual format, but we don't worship the same gods, we don't have really the same practices. So it's a very difficult community to pull together as one unified community.
But we do, and we work towards it versus separation. I think we as humans, we were taught competition, even sports. It's you're this team or you're that team. Politics, you're this or you're that. It's the divide. It's all about the divide. That's what I love about the pagan community. And again, now you are traditional British craft. So explain to people in Ced, whatever that, explain to people who may not understand, maybe they know what, say, Wicca is, or they're maybe not clear, kind of explain the differences.
Well, I mean, it's a deep and rich history, so I'm not going to get into it because that'd probably be like a 3-hour class. But in a very short format, Wicca was something that more recently came into being. Late 50s, early 60s. It came into a cohesive form through Gerald Gardner, and from the early days, it spread pretty quickly as a goddess-oriented neo-pagan religious system with elements of magic in it, which makes it witchcraft. But then about 10, 15 years ago, people started getting involved in traditional witchcraft. I was always in traditional witchcraft. I was raised in it back in Britain. But traditional witchcraft goes more to the old roots of witchcraft before it had the ceremonial aspects in it. And it's not as heavily focused on the goddess worship or the neo-pagan elements. It's a lot more involved in the occult and the mysteries and the legacy of the ancients. In the tradition that I work with, which is really the only one I can represent, we work a lot with the gifts, the sight, and communion with spirits. So we are a very heavy spirit connected tradition where we are in communion with spirit and we work with spirit, looking to bring about changes from our magical practices.
It's beautiful. So, and it's speaking of that, again, I'm going to put like 10 years of classes into one moment with you
Yeah.
because that's what and I've talked about this before, working the compass, because we are even very different. I have trouble getting out of working elemental. I'm not Wiccan, but
Hmm.
I very much work elemental in my practice. So
Yeah.
can you, explain the kind of the difference of compass or what compass works to people or how you see that?
The circle that people who are working Wicca are working with is elemental based, and they cast a circle which is a containment, which is an artificial horizon actually, where spirit and the realm of matter, the material world, come together, is on the horizon line because the heavens with the stars, the realm of spirit, meets the earth at the horizon. And as we can't really work with the horizon because it keeps moving when we walk towards it, we have to create an artificial horizon so that we can work with it as a liminal space between the worlds. But the basic circle that Wiccans cast is for containment, and then they make doorways within that construct and invite the gods and the spirits they want to work with into their environment. This is a carryover from ceremonial magic, where the circle was protective and containing. In traditional witchcraft, we work with something called a compass, and the compass has different associations with the directions. We don't work elemental; we work with the winds of creation. It's really a Greek system. When you hear about, for example, witches tying winds in handkerchiefs and selling them to sailors, this is the whole idea of how the winds of creation carry certain qualities of spirit, and how even when we speak and use our breath, we are bringing form to spirit because our breath emits spirit. It's otherwise known as pneuma. You know the pneumatic drill?
Hmm.
The whole idea of air and pneuma is also a term for spirit in the old Greek system. So the way we work is we are working with spirit and actually birthing spirits with our words, which is where Hecate comes from. Hecate is a goddess associated with words of magic. And when we're working with the words and we're working with the winds of creation, we associate those with our horizon perimeter, known as the compass. But the construct is designed for us to journey. So we go to the other realms. We use our sight and we journey more like shamans, going from realm to realm, interacting with spirits. So where the circle contains and you call in divine spirits, the compass is a tool of navigation so that we can journey to the other realms like shamans.
Beautiful, beautiful. So if someone, again, people listening to my show have at least some interest in spirituality, metaphysics, occult sciences and thing, how, again, you are very organic and shamanic. So if somebody's kind of new to this and they're being drawn here, what do you suggest people do? Like get different books, go things like check out classes going, I'm led this way, I'm led that way.
I would say the first thing you need to do is connect with the truth of spirit, your experience of spirit, and wrestle with your conscience and your ethics to make sure that there's a sense of truth and harmony in what you're perceiving and what you're practicing. But more than anything, you've got to connect with your own spirit and awaken your ability to perceive a world, a reality that is not as fixed, not as bound, where you can bring change to it and where you can interact with it on other levels. So the way we perceive reality changes reality. The way we interact with reality changes reality. One of the ways to look at it is like emotions. When we are dealing with people and we are in a certain emotional state, we infect other people with our emotions. It's the same kind of practice that we affect the realm of spirit by the quality of our spirit. So we bring harmony when we are in a state of harmony. And when we use our sight and our gifts to have relationships with spirit, then it's like an extension of our family beyond the realm of the material. So I would say if you're going to start, then the first thing is to understand is that we were born with the ability to perceive more than we do today. So rather than keep looking for the truth outside of yourself, think about how it's a shift of awareness within yourself to embrace a deeper sense of reality. Become an artist with life. Look at life as an adventure of wonder and start to interact with it more like an artist. And that will open your ability to perceive spirit and it will get you in a better connection with your own spirit, as well as help you start to develop a way to control the way you are feeling and the way you are interacting. that we develop the tools to step back from the knee jerks, where we don't keep getting pulled into drama and to other people's crises, where we're able to step back and say, well, what would be productive here? And how can I adjust my emotions now and get a hold of myself so that I can be a seed of progress, that I can come as to instigate a shift here that will benefit myself and everybody else around me.
It's beautiful. So the one thing it is about the craft, and you're saying too, is again, we take responsibility versus just being followers and doing what is told.
Hmm.
I talk about it a lot because I look at what's happening in the world before we even get into what's happening in the world. But it seems like people have fallen asleep. They don't even know what they think. It's like asleep at the wheel, automatic pilot, and we've become little
Yeah.
sheeps. And then people even tell you to be little sheeps.
I'm not a fan of mainstream religion for myself, but people who aren't interested in wrestling with their conscience and trying to get a sense of truth and in reality. One thing they always had that united them was religion. Religion was a place where no matter where you came from, no matter what you was invested in, religion was the great equalizer where we shared grace with each other. And I think what's really lacking in today's world is we are simply competing with each other, very preoccupied with our individual rights and wants and needs. And slowly we're losing the ability of empathy, and we're losing our ability to unite in grace, regardless of our differences. And that's becoming, I think, a real societal problem.
Yeah, it is. And again, if people are asleep, they may not even be noticing
No,
it.
I don't think people are. I look at it and I say, my God, wait, you must be the rudest person on the planet, what you just did. And then I stop and I go, they don't even know what they just did.
They
They
don't
have
even know
completely
what they
no
just
awareness.
did. So the one thing about, well, witchcraft itself, whatever form of it you take, again, is that we are choosing to take fate into our own hands, correct?
Yes.
We're not just flowing downhill, which is, I think, something I got from you. So what would some of the benefits, again, if I have a lot of maybe new agers listening in or people just new to this, what do you get out of the craft, magic, taking that into your own hands?
Well, I mean, when you're working with magic in order to change the shape and the form of fate, when you become co-creative with fate, you can't really do it safely without really getting to a good connection with your spirit and with your tribe, your spirit tribe, your ancestors. And when you are in harmony with it, then you're able to bring about changes to fate without really getting yourself in trouble, without making your circumstances worse. And that's kind of really important. But the underlying reason why you would do it is because as we change fate and as we evolve, we actually start to experience a much deeper, more colorful universe. We start to explore other realities of being, and it won't extend your life in terms of years, but it increases the experience of life to where you feel like you've lived 4 or 5 lifetimes in the years that you've had. You can't hardly keep up with the experiences and the joy and the wonder that just keeps coming. You never get kind of bored. You never want your time to move quicker. You just totally engaged, and it's just fascinating. So if it's your nature to live in a world that is a constant adventure of questions, rather than sitting there, with your answers like a horde, not wanting to evolve any further. If you're open to that journey, then magic and witchcraft really is a wonderful practice just to help be co-creative in experiencing a bigger reality.
Beautiful. And what you said first, and again, you've always spoken so clearly, you do have to, you're taking responsibility. You have to
Yes.
have that sense of integrity, virtue,
Yeah.
ethics, moral code, not morality and the judgment system of that, because if you don't, that's when you get in trouble.
Well, the thing is, if a lot of people when they first get into magic, they want to feel powerful because very often people have felt disempowered and they see problems in their life that they want to resolve. And unfortunately, because people, come from a very basic place, their first impulse is to be better than somebody else. They look at everybody in the world as being in competition with them. So if I want to get ahead in the world, I've got to disempower somebody else or put somebody else down. But when you're practicing magic like that, what happens is the people that you harm become attached to you. You don't get to walk away from that. They become part of your reality. And so you finish up being bound down by the negative actions that you've done. So one of the things that we teach, like in the classes in the store, is if we find solutions through magic that actually liberate yourself and everybody else without being negative, by holding yourself in accord with your spirit rather than your knee-jerking ego, then you get to create a much nicer world to live in.
Yeah, because we
So
do.
so responsibility is the key. I mean, you can't be negative to people and then think that you can walk away from it. It's like, no, it's attached to you. You know.
Yeah, because we create, and that's from you too. We create the world we live in completely.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's why I don't want to live in a world of curses and hexes. If I do it to somebody, it could be done to me. That's
Well, think about that. If you empower somebody else to do be doing negative magic to them, then you've opened a door where that action is so empowered that if they turn around and do it back to you, you've got a real problem. Whereas if you never engage in that practice, it has no power in your universe.
yeah. Isn't that great? I'm okay. A question. Um, since I mean, we've never talked about this stuff. We'll get back
Okay.
into magic and things and what's going on. But a lot of my
Okay.
show, again, because I hang with ghosts and ghosty things like that,
Hmm.
other than just our regular spiritual path, the whole paranormal. Have you had any paranormal of those type of experiences, like ghosty things, other than working with your deity and your gods and things like that? Have you ever had like haunted house experiences?
Yeah, no, I've dealt with hauntings, and I've been to seances where things have gotten really manifest, and people have been pushed around and hair being pulled. And at one occasion, I was in a seance, and the whole room, everybody was feeling the sensation of moving, and then things started to literally swing in space. So
Yeah.
spirits are when they're disincarnate spirits, they can be very manifest. However, that said, we have to always remember that spirits really can't interact with this dimension without the participation of somebody who's alive. That we are the threshold through which they manifest. And so, whenever you're seeing some kind of spirit activity, there's normally some kind of life force energy that's enabling it, right?
Yes, 100%. I've in my whole life of doing this, 100%. Yeah. That's good because this is our realm.
Yeah.
This is our realm, and we invite them in, or they come in and do whatever they want to do. Um,
People forget that we're dealing with spirits all the time when we're dealing with each other. We tend to think of spirits just as being dead people, but spirits are inside us. We are a spirit in the vessel of flesh because we're carnate. But when we pass over, the same spirits emerging simply without the flesh and therefore without the free will or the life force energy to maintain us. But the identity of the individual is still pretty strong, at least for a while, and then it requires to be nurtured and supported. It's a bit like the spirit of love. The spirit of love is a non-corporeal spirit. And as long as we take care of it and feed it and nurture it, it's going to flourish and be present. As soon as we start to neglect it, it's going to twist and turn and may become the spirit of pain, the spirit of betrayal, whatever other thing that it may turn into. And finally, it may wither and die. With people, it's not quite as easy for them to just wither because they have lived a life where they've self-identified their identity, their personality. And so it's a bit more hardy, but it still requires nurturing and support, which is why we work so heavily with the ancestors, which is what Halloween's all about.
yes,
Is taking care of our ancestors and making sure that our loved ones have crossed over into the ancestral realm, and then we invite them to feast with us and honor their lives and honor their memories, so that the relationship across the veil becomes very real for us and real for them.
So speaking of, since we are getting very close to Halloween now, or Samhain, so explain to people who may not know what that is, other than trick-or-treaters and kids dressing up, whether they can do it this year with the pandemic or not.
Yeah, well, originally trick and treaters comes from the idea that at Halloween, All Hallows is Halloween comes from All Hallows. We call it Samhain, but it's All Hallows, which is the event of the dead. Really, I think probably the Latino community celebrates it clearest with the Day of the Dead, where they really go to the graveyards and celebrate and get together with their ancestors. Halloween is a lot the same kind of thing. And when kids get into the trick and treat, originally that started because the veil was so thin that all spirits were abroad, not only the dead, but also the fairy folk, the goblins, and all of the malicious spirits as well as the good ones. And so guising oneself as a goblin or a fairy basically secured our safety during a time when all kinds of spirits, some of them perhaps malevolent, were out and about. So the actual dressing up is not a new thing. The trick and treating, of course, is the whole idea of the trickster, and the idea of the trickster turning everything on its head. The idea of misrule, where the dead become the primary focus, not the living. Everything's turned on its head. It's very much a celebration of the other. And where Hallows is concerned, the other would be, for us, our dearly beloved who have crossed over. So Halloween very often today is being practiced as a secular festival where people are just having a good time. I've got a kid, we go trick or treating, and it's just, it's a great family thing to do. But I try and make sure that they understand the difference from Halloween as a secular festival and Samhain as working with our ancestors and our beloved dead, where we feed them and we celebrate their lives and we have communion with them. And that helps nurture and support our ongoing relationship, because in the craft, when somebody crosses over, we have a period of 40 days where they're in transition. But once they arrive in the ancestral realm, we celebrate the beginnings of a new relationship with them as a non-corporeal spirit and member of the family. And so the relationship continues. It doesn't finish with their death. And so Samhain is that once in a year Sabbath where everybody gets together and makes a big deal out of it. But there are many of us in the old traditions who we actually get together and we celebrate our ancestors, and we put out a plate and we include them in our family gatherings at other times in the year as well.
Yes, yes. I must say, and you have run, and I've been to many, many, many of them, the most beautiful Samhain, anybody in the Los Angeles area, rituals, festivals. You literally have the longest altar I've ever seen. It's like, it seems like it's 50 feet long, where everyone brings their pictures of their ancestors, their beloved loved ones. There's candles, there's incense. And then we have this like 200 people gathered around the fire, and the magic you feel, it's like no other public ritual I've ever experienced.
I try and make sure that people experience magic firsthand, because I think if you experience it firsthand, then it becomes real to you. It's not a question of faith. It's not believing in something that you've heard about. When you've experienced it, you've opened a door to bring that into your life. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, I think that's very important. So coming up, everyone, Halloween, go trick-or-treating, and Samhain, maybe celebrate your beloved dead. Give them a moment.
Yeah, put a picture out for them and give them a candle and a drink, because of course everybody likes a drink.
Who doesn't like to drink?
Right. and a plate of food, something sweet and wicked. It's always nice. It's always appreciated.
Okay, now I have a question for you, because people ask me all this time. Okay, they put food on an altar. They're giving food to their deities or to their ancestors. What do you do if they don't eat it and finish it?
Well, if you put something out and the next morning you come out there and you see that it's gone green and nasty, I kind of look at that as, okay, so you didn't like that, and I just throw it away, right? Because but if it sits there for a little bit, and then sometimes you just feel that yes, they liked it, you have to listen to your own spirit in this. You feel, oh yeah, okay, they're consuming the life force energy of it. It's like a sacrifice. It's not that it's going to be there, forever without changing. It's like, if it's alive, it's going to wither and get nasty. That's just the nature of things, and you want it to do that. And then once it's gotten nasty and ucky, you throw it out. You say, okay, you've had enough of that, and you throw it out. You treat it like trash, like you would your own food when you don't finish it.
Okay, so it's good.
But basically, what they're doing is if you think about what I said before, how they're a spirit without life force energy. When we give them food, or we give them flowers, or we give them anything that's living, that is life force energy. There's actual life in it. It sustains us, it sustains them. And what they're drawing from that is basically the gift of life force energy. And then what's left is the trash part. It's the vessel, and the vessel gets thrown away. It's treated the way it is. It's trash.
That's beautiful. And going back to seances for a second, that's what I notice in working with spirit is that again, they're fine, but they like that like almost real time thing of, you know, they're fine, they're everywhere, they're doing their thing. But when you're doing like a mediumship or a
Mhm.
seance, it's almost like real time conversation back and forth. That's what I get. For them, it's like a tingulation of almost being in this world.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I say it's the idea that we are the vessels, we are the threshold through which they manifest, and because of that, because we are the mediator, the time frame awareness that we have becomes an element within the seance. It's not because they live in space and time;
No.
it's because we do. We bring that element to the seance, and that's what makes it suddenly coherent and tangible.
Yeah, and they have a moment of space and time that's
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm talking to my kid. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I always get. It's like from spirit. Ah, so again, I think people I'm sure are very intrigued by now. So if you don't mind, tell people some of the classes again, since anybody can take them now online. You go to the Green Man store. What are some of the classes that you teach?
I teach basically classes in witchcraft, all levels, from beginner right through to advanced. And I don't think there's a lot of people out there teaching sort of advanced witchcraft. The type of witchcraft I teach is the kind of witchcraft I practice, which has to do with the gifts, uh, communing with spirit, bringing change to spirit in order to bring about change to the world. I also teach some of the old practices like spellcrafting, and I'll get into some of the mythology. I'll get into the history, philosophy. There's many elements that we study in order to expand our awareness and our capacity to perceive reality in different ways. And so all the classes that I teach kind of support and nurture this evolutionary path of the initiate. And I make it public because I think we're at a time now where people who are seeking it, if they can understand what they're looking at, need to get it. And so I want to put it out there. The COVID actually has given us the gift of Zoom, really. I mean, I didn't know anything about Zoom before COVID, and now I've been talking for years, and people have been nagging me for years. Griffin, you've got to get your classes online, and I'm like, yeah, I know I do, and I will. Never did, and now all of a sudden, yeah, here I
You
am.
have to. Exactly. We've all done the same thing. That's why we've moved into the matrix, and the
Yeah,
benefits of it are brilliant. Brilliant. And one of the other things you teach, and I want to tell, because a lot of my people are tarot people and different things, you have your
tarot.
very own tarot deck.
I do. That was an interesting project. I've been getting people telling me for the past 30 years that I need to start writing books because there wasn't, especially like 30 years ago, there was hardly anybody practicing this kind of witchcraft. And so people that were I was talking to, even elders and other published authors, were saying, Griffin, you gotta publish, you gotta publish. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll publish. Every time I sat down and started writing a book, I had this real problem because whenever I start getting into something which is mediating law and practice, I've got these spirits I work with that start, jabbering in my ear. I have a problem. I can't even read books. If I'm reading a book, I get halfway through a page and I'm getting so much commentary coming at me from the spirits that I'm like, okay, fine, put that away. What is it you want to talk about? And so it's almost impossible for me just to get through a book. So writing a book was even worse. Every time I started putting something down, it was like, yeah, but then in this context, you do this and that changes that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to finish up being a whole library, and I can't get anything published. I can't get it finished. And so I was sitting there with my working partner, who's passed now, Rita, that you know.
Yes.
And we was talking about how I just can't seem to get a book written. And then I thought to myself, well, the Devil's Picture Book is one of the terms used for the tarot. Devil's Picture Book, Dame Fate's Picture Book, these are terms related to the tarot, with the idea that basically the occult mysteries are embedded within the format of the tarot, and that when you shuffle the tarot deck, you are bringing your spirit, time, space, and context into being, so that when you lay the cards out, the basic bones, the language of fate, is being displayed within the context of your reading. Which means that if I was to use the deck to put the tradition and practices of witchcraft into it, then every time somebody shuffles and spreads it out, they could really work with the bones of the practice but in a very personal way within the context of their lives. And so we figured, rather than do a book, let's make a tarot deck. Very simple idea. It took us literally, I had a Gnostic transmission. I sat down with the spirits. I said, okay, here's your book. What do you want? And in one session, I sketched out the major arcana. And then I spent about a month, came back to read it, said, okay, let's get the minor done. And then in one other session, we sat down and sketched out the minor arcana. So 2 sittings, we did the whole deck. But then we had to go and draw the damn thing proper and color it and all the rest of it. It took 10 years. But then we finally got it finished. But the interesting thing is after I did the first sketches, and they became kind of like concepts within the language of my cosmology, they became a vessel of mediation directly for the spirits. And I found that right at the beginning, even before we'd fleshed the whole deck out, it became my teacher. Spirits had a tool that they could start teaching me directly with in the tarot deck. And everything that I was practicing started going on fast forward. Information, law, practices, it was just, it was piling in so fast I couldn't keep up. And that was directly because of the tarot deck.
That's beautiful. And again, you have, your cosmology is within the deck. I've taken many courses on it. You are a tarot. You're based on the major arcana, minor arcana, same as the classic, not an oracle deck, but you have some very different meanings and things, and it all attaches. Yeah. Oh my God, you've attached it to everything from the Kabbalistic tree of life to the, it's really complicated. And
it is, it's layers. There's a whole level of the major arcana related to the life force energies and the qualities of the directions. And so I have a cosmology that also ties into the 7 classical planets. It's all that's working there. And then I'm working with the minor arcana, which I thought was a brilliant move to align the minor arcana with the deacons of the astrological houses. And I thought, I'm going to have to write a book about this because no one's ever done this before. And then I started researching it and found out that's what Arthur Waite did. So the Rider-Waite deck has its minor arcana based on the deacons of the astrological houses as well. So it wasn't an original idea at all.
But a good one.
But it was a good one. But my interpretation of those deacons is a little different from Rider-Waite, because you have to remember that Rider-Waite was a magical Christian tradition. He came out of the Golden Dawn, which is magical Christianity, and so a lot of the tarot is based on the Kabbalistic tree, which is Semitic cosmology, and a lot of the concepts have to do with magical Christianity. So, and then all the decks that came afterwards were copies of the Rider-Waite, simply with different cultural and artistic overlays. So when I came with my deck, because it was a true witchcraft deck, what I did was I took the cosmology of my tradition and I took the cosmology of not the Rider-Waite, but the tarot when it was first being done, the old decks from the 16th century. And I said, okay, well, what if I bring these together? And I found common roots so this deck can speak to people who work the tarot, but it will encompass a cosmology of witchcraft. And it became really insightful because from it, not only did I get a deeper insight into my own witchcraft practices, I actually got a really different perspective on the origins of the tarot that was very inspiring.
Beautiful. It is a beautiful deck. I even have one of those first black and white ones.
Oh, wow.
The numbered one. Yes, I do. I do. Okay, again, and people, this is about empowerment. My show is, again, just people, how amazing we are. What do you think are some of the pitfalls, so we can see that we get into, other than the day-to-day life? We're asleep, we've lost track with so much of what's inside of us. What do you think, like 1 or 2 things that people in there going through their life, whatever their belief system or practices are, that you think that would actually help them to, live that much better of a life or that much more empowered of a life?
These are basically silly, banal practices, but I found that they helped me a lot. I was a person who was full of opinions, and every time something came up, I just had to sort of like get in there and engage. And what I found is that if I give myself a 24-hour window before reacting to something that has upset me, I'm in a much better position to do something productive about it. So I have learned that even at the age of 62, I actually I benefit from a timeout on occasion. I put myself in a timeout. And I think that backing away from hurt feelings and putting yourself in a timeout to where you can say, okay, maybe other people weren't looking to hurt me. Maybe that's not really about me. Maybe that's simply about somebody else. And coming back at it in a more empowered place to where I can be productive in resolving issues rather than just feeding the fire of discontent. I think that probably is the most productive thing that I've learned in terms of trying to make my life better.
That's beautiful. And that doesn't seem that mundane. That seems like something that most people don't think of at all. We are in a country of knee-jerk reactions and
Right?
thoughtlessness, just saying,
Yeah.
of what we're doing. So speaking of the world we live in,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? I mean, without we get a little political, not getting too political, but what's going on? What are we going to come out of this with?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm hoping that that we come out with a government that's going to listen to us and help us unite in our diversity. I'm looking right now. Okay, so I'm a boomer, and people will say, "Yeah, okay, so you're looking for the moderate approach." I actually have been a socialist my whole life, even when I was young. But socialism is all about the party. It's not about individuals. And right now, what I'm seeing both on the left extreme and on the right is all about individuals. This is really about individuals who are dynamic, but it's bringing a quality of division into play, where the idea of compromising so that we can all live relatively happy in our diversity, honoring our differences, and trying to find ways to not disempower each other. All of that's going away, and I that's really bothering me. I don't know how we're going to survive as a large tribe if we can't start unifying ourselves. And I'm seeing this need to throw down the gauntlet and be divisive and divided. I'm seeing this on both sides, on both extremes, and even people who are trying to speak to a moderate middle and talk about compromise as a positive thing, which not that long ago it really was a positive thing. A lot of them are getting demonized. A lot are getting, told that, to shut up. And so I'm probably getting myself in a whole bunch of trouble because I keep pushing it, and people say, "Well, why do you support Biden?" I'm like, "I don't support Biden. I'm supporting the Democratic Party because I believe that the Democratic Party right now is geared towards listening to many different people, and so therefore they can accommodate people on both left and right and try and find a way to give us space so we can all live happy." Whereas what I've experienced with the right wing is, either you're for or you're against. It's very much, I mean, if right from Trump, either you're like fully backing me without question, or you're my enemy.
Yeah.
And he's using his position to make everybody who he disagrees with enemies of the state. And I think that's incredibly scary and dangerous. I come from a time when fascism was not far in our rearview mirror. I grew up in Britain soon after the Second World War. I spent 10 years in Norway, which is heavily scarred from being occupied by the Nazis. So this whole experience of the reality of what it is to not keep Nazis in check is very scary. And so I'm really hoping that we will understand that we can be idealistic for the future, but in order to be idealistic we have to start with a government that's listening and trying to work with us to evolve in that direction. As long as we got fascists or people who are not looking to open their doors in communication, then I don't know where we can go. We are in danger of losing ourselves to fundamentalism,
Yeah.
religious and political fundamentalism. And in my opinion, be it left, right, any religion in the world, fundamentalism is the primary enemy of the modern world.
I agree wholeheartedly in any direction. So, and okay, in the middle of this big divide that we're having going on, in comes in the middle of this pandemic, this COVID thing.
I
Do you
know,
think,
right?
isn't that it? Do you think that's a higher dimension that God said, okay, let's lock them in their house while they're doing this? Or do you think they hand in hand? Do you think it's helping? It's hurting? What's coming out of the quarantine?
I see the way I work with the gods are qualities of harmony and change, and they each carry their own what they are. God of love is the expression of the realm of love. I mean, it's not like they have agendas with us. But when I look at Gaia, for example, Mother Earth, and she's talking about the harmony of Earth with its ebb and its flow, with the tides of destruction and creation, which is natural in the natural world, death and rebirth. Gaia's been quite happy just keep rolling. We're getting to a place where we really have become a virus on the planet. We we are creating a unhospitable environment for ourselves to survive. And I think as we've been doing this, Gaia has been kicking up with hurricanes and storms and all kinds of ways to give us a wake-up call. And we seem to shrug it off and rebuild our buildings and really don't change fast enough. And so I think finally she's like, well, you know what? Let's fight the virus with a virus. And I think this is just a new reaction from her to sort of like slap us and say, tap the brakes, guys, reinvent your lives, because if you're gonna keep attacking me, I'm gonna start attacking you.
Yeah.
If you want to live in harmony with the planet, symbiotically with the planet, then great, we're good. But if you're gonna keep destroying your environment, your habitat, then I'm gonna take care of you.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I remember when it first happened, we were locked away and hearing, we live in Los Angeles, we don't have the cleanest air. And for one day we had like the cleanest air on the planet or
I
something.
know.
And seeing how beautiful, it's like, we could do this. We
Yeah.
could do this. We have to take care of it. Again, I think it's maybe if we're so asleep, this was a shaking, a wake up call. It's like a little wake up call. We didn't listen. Throw a little water on us. We didn't listen. Knock us on the head slightly. We didn't listen. Okay, here's a 2x4. Wake up.
I don't think it's accident that like the Trump administration has taken the position that COVID is not really a problem
Yeah.
and not really engaging it. And at the same time, they're opening up national parks for drilling and supporting big oil. I think both those concepts kind of live together. It's like if we really looked at the fact that our environment is turning against us because of global warming, and Gaia is basically rallying to war against us. If we accepted that, we'd have to stop doing what we're doing. So if they want to open up the national parks to big oil drilling, then they also have to turn their backs on COVID and say, everything's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Yeah. Send the kids to school.
Send the kids to school.
Yeah. We don't need the old people anyway.
I take exception to that.
I know, me too. It's like, what? I don't get.
I may be old in the flesh, but I'm very young in the spirit. I absolutely refuse to grow up. I think that's one of the benchmarks of my life is to never grow up.
Me too. I haven't figured
Keep
out
the
what I'm
wonder.
going to do when I grow up yet. I'm still figuring that out. I look at all
What
these
can't
people
we
like,
do?
what, you could do anything.
Anything.
Exactly. Anything.
Anything.
Okay. So I just keep going, okay, what's next? Okay, the alien's going to land. Maybe that's what we need next to wake us up. So what is your thoughts on that? Going completely off kilter and something we've never
Aliens?
talked. Yes. Do you believe in extraterrestrials?
I see the way I look at it is we are the ones who have the perception of other realms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we perceive the other realms, we are shaping those realms through the language of our experiences and our imagination. We are bringing form to it. Imagination, people demonize imagination like it's not real. Imagination is a language of communication. We experience something like war. It's a spirit of war and it impacts us heavily. When we want to then communicate about war, we may do a piece of music or we may paint something. We use imagination to translate the experience into something that communicates. So imagination itself is not a bad thing. It's a tool of art, it's a tool of expression. That same tool is how we sometimes bring shape to what we experience in the moment. And back in the Victorian period, people experienced the fairy realm. People, and even before the Victorian period, people experienced spirits of nature as fairies. And so there was a lot of fairy abductions,
Mm-hmm.
fairy encounters, all kinds of fairy stuff going on. As we've moved forward now into the realm of science, our imagination is captivated by what other creatures could live out there in the universe. So when we have alien encounters, I think what we're actually experiencing is the same spirits we did that were fairies. Only now our perception is coloring it, the filter's coloring it as an alien encounter. But it's the same kind of spirit encounter. So they're not aliens from another planet, they're actually spirits from another dimension that we are perceiving in the format of aliens. I think if aliens from another planet were going to come here, and I do think there's absolutely, I can't believe with all those stars there's not other life forms out there.
Right.
If they were to come here, we would know about it. It's like I can't see people traveling, billions of miles to come visit us and then like skulk around like thieves and try and be secretive. They're going to be like, "Hey guys,"
Right.
but they'd want to like get to know us, and there would be that we would open for dialogue. So the fact that we're seeing these encounters with aliens being also secretive and hidden, I think it's because we're actually encountering the fairies again in a different format.
I love that, actually. Again, everything moves shapes to what you know. If you've watched all these kind of monster movies and not those monster movies or
Hmm.
whatever, I love that. Yes, and I agree. There has to be other things out there, because if we were the only species to develop in this endless universe, how weird would that be?
Oh, that'd be so depressing. That'd be
I
so
know.
depressing.
And I think if I was some other species from thing coming and looking at us, I might just go somewhere else.
Yeah,
Uh, you
I'd
know,
probably take a look and say, you know what, guys, I'm going to come back in a little bit later on.
yeah,
I'm going to come check you out when you've grown up a bit
they
more.
got some work to do. They're pretty new on this whole thing,
Yeah.
I guess. Okay, we are somewhat getting close to the end, so I want to talk about where people can find you. Talk about what you're doing. Anything coming up? Any workshops coming up? How they
Yeah,
can find up?
I've got two series coming up. One is the Witch Blood, which I've never done online before. But in order to do the Witch Blood series, because it's advanced initiate work, you have to have done workings with me before, classes with me before, so that you are immersed in the cosmology and the language. So that one's kind of not open for new people. But I am also going to be starting together with Carrie Wolf, who is my working partner now.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
I'm going to start a new series for beginners, an intro to traditional witchcraft. So if you're interested in doing an intro to traditional witchcraft, it's going to be a series that's, I think we're running it on Thursdays, but it's going to be recorded so that people can, if they have conflict of time or they're somewhere else in the world, so the time frame isn't going to work for them, they can go and look at the recordings of the class to keep up to speed as the class goes through. I think it's going to be a 6 or 7 week series. And it's going to touch on basically how to use witchcraft to empower you in the world, working with basic tools and basic concepts. It's not going to be deep and philosophical. It's going to be very practical, aimed towards people that are very new, who are looking to figure out who am I and how can I make use of my gifts.
Beautiful. Now, where can people find that? Where can people find you?
I'm the manager of the Green Man Store, and we have an online site called thegreenmanstore.com. That's the URL, thegreenmanstore.com. If you go there, there's a website, and on the top page there is join our online community, which we have a mighty network community that is good for networking. And then for the classes, you can actually register for the classes online at our website. Otherwise, if you have difficulty dealing with the online, you can always call the store, and all the information for it is on our website.
Beautiful. And what about social media? I know you're not the biggest social media guys, but can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook with Griffin Ced on Facebook. Of course, I'm a boomer, so I've got to be with the old farts on Facebook, right? I've tried to get down with Instagram, but to be honest, it's like I said earlier, when you're engaged in witchcraft to the level that we are, our lives are so full. It's like, who has time to sit down and be constantly following everybody and sharing their life? While I'm sharing something, I could have been experiencing something. So I'm so engaged, and I've got so many responsibilities and engagements that I can't do the Instagram. I try, but Facebook, I go on maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I'll check in and get myself in trouble and then get out
Okay,
again.
good. That's good. So yeah, you guys look up thegreenmanstore.com. Again, it's in the Los Angeles area, North Hollywood, but it doesn't have to be anymore. We are worldwide.
We are
We
global,
are
yeah.
global. Brady Bunch meets the Matrix. It's good. And I'm kind of digging on this. I'm working on the Zoom now. At first it was like, I'm not going to like this. I'm not going to like this, but I'm liking it. I'm
My
liking it.
my biggest problem, I've got a class right now which is dealing with the compass and the
Mm-hmm.
directions called the Broom and Mill, dealing with the Mistress of the Broom, which is a wonderful subject, the broom. And we're broom riding and we're going into the realms. The class is around 50 people, and over half of them are not showing on my screen because they've got their cameras turned off, right?
Right.
So whereas when I'm doing the classes, I could see all the faces and I could feel, are you with me? Are you following me? You know, you could touch in and just get a sense of them. On Zoom, it's like I have no idea if people are like bored to death or what the hell's going on. I just can't read the room. And I think that's the hardest thing with the Zoom is you can't read the room.
Yeah, but well, again, you get you little squares. It's like I'm needing more and more glasses because
Yeah.
at least the 25 of the 50 you can see, you start to read it from their video. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
wake up over there. You're sleeping.
Right?
Wake up, wake up. I've done that. It's like, oh, wait, I know. And the social media is hard. I mean, really, what do I do at the witching hour, 3 in the morning? That's kind of when I'm posting because I didn't post today. Oh, good Lord, I should be sleeping. But no, I can't go to bed before I put something on
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm a boomer too, but you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, Griffin, I have so much to. Will you come back another day and talk to us again?
I'd love to. I'd absolutely
Okay.
love to. To give me, stuff that we can talk about. Let's get into it.
Okay, I would
Let's
love that.
make some adventures.
We'll do adventures.
Yeah.
So again, I want to thank my beautiful guest, Griffin Ced. You can find him at thegreenmanstore.com. My name is Patti Negri. You are listening to The Witching Hour. You can find me on dashradio.com. You can download the app and you will have 80 amazing commercial-free stations of all sorts of things, music and talk and great stuff. You can also find me at my little home, wherever in the cloud that all podcasts live, under The Witching Hour on Apple, Spotify, Anchor. I have no idea where. I'm like you. I'm a boomer. It's like, it's there somewhere, but you can see all the old episodes to listen on demand in all the podcast places. So again, you can find me at pattinegri.com. Yes, I am all the social medias, Patti Negri Psychic Medium on Facebook, at Patti Negri on Twitter, Patti.Negri on Instagram.
Oh my
And
God, you're everywhere.
oh, I'm everywhere. That's what I'm doing at 3 in the morning. Who needs sleep? But thank you very, very much again. Remember, you guys, magic is everywhere. You just got to look sometime. Thank you so much. Signing off. Thank you, Griffin.
Bye.
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 The Witching Hour. Bye.
Great job, you guys.
He's pretty cool, huh, Q? Yeah,
Yeah.
Kevin. He's one of the smartest guys I know. He's good. He's good.
So cool. So, okay, so Kevin and I will take it, and we're gonna do what we do. Griffin, thank you so much for carving out time for us.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you
All
for
right.
inviting me.
My honor. So if you have, when this gets close to airing, that's when I start promoting it, and I even give it to my publicist to promote. So if you have a specific photo you want to use, if you have a new or a little bio you want to use, just send those to me now,
Okay.
or even closer to, or I can remind you closer to, however you.
I'll ask Carrie. She's my stylist.
I know. You're perfect. And tell Carrie hi. I love her and miss her too. So we'll have to get her on here one day too. What's she doing?
She's starting to do classes with me, so she's getting a little better with the camera, but she's been very leary of being